This is Unmasked.
You are a tattoo artist.
Yes.
You own your own studio.
It's
You're 21, 22?
21.
21. Okay. Take me through how that happened. Like, I want to know, like, the whole journey about, like, how you go from zero to full-on owning your own shop.
Oh, okay. So I never thought that I was going to be a tattoo artist growing up. My mom was from Wyoming. My dad's from, like, Pennsylvania. Like, none of them had tattoos or really knew anyone with tattoos. And the only people with tattoos that they knew were either from prison or drug addicts. So I never grew up knowing anything about the tattoo industry or that it was a real profession or anything like that. So I was actually going to college to study architecture when I got a tattoo from the guy that ended up mentoring me. And I was getting a tattoo done by him. It was like the second tattoo I got done by him. And I jokingly was like, you should teach me how to do this. I didn't think he would, anything would go past that. And he was like, you do art? And I feel like every artist is kind of like, yeah, I do art. Like, I don't know. And he's
sketchy.
like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, I guess. So he asked me to show him some of the photos of the art that I did. And I actually ended up showing him a Mac Miller painting that I did. And instantly he was like, yeah, you're going to come work here and I'm going to teach you how to tattoo. And so I was like, I'm going to drop out of college and just try this because that sounds way more fun than going to college. So I dropped out of college, didn't tell anyone, and then told my parents later, and my mom was so pissed. And she was like, you're going to go back. I was on scholarship too.
Really?
Yes.
Like,
So
full ride?
not full ride, but I had like $10K a semester scholarship. So it was pretty good scholarship. And so she was like, you're going to go back to school or I'm cutting you off completely. And I was like, well, I'm not going back to school, so I guess I'm getting a morning job. And so I ended up getting a morning job at Einstein's, the bagel company, which loved working there. It was great. I got a bunch of free bagels. So I worked full time in the morning. I'd wake up at like 4 a.m., go to my morning shift, and then I would leave at like 11, go take a nap for half an hour, and then go to work at 12, and then work until 8. So I did that 6 days a week during my apprenticeship. I worked 2 full-time jobs. Because she told me she was going to cut me off, and I was like, well, I want to try this, so I'm going to do it one way. So I feel like that really gave me a lot of motivation and drive to, I was doing this for me and not for anybody else. And so I really pushed myself to get better quicker because I was like, I need to start making money off of this. Like, I can't be doing this, like, 2 full-time jobs for this long. So I really, like, pushed myself to get better and was able to do, like, really nice work to the point where I could quit my morning job because I didn't want to, continue doing that. I don't know how much you want to get into the guy who taught me how to tattoo, but if you know anything about the tattoo industry, it's kind of a predatory industry and it's not the best place. The first week that I started my apprenticeship, I cried in the bathroom because I was like, fuck, I just dropped out of college and I'm getting verbally harassed at this new job. You know what I mean? And so
By this guy?
Yes. And so I cried in the bathroom and I was like, I had like a pep talk and I was like, you're going to learn what you need to learn and then you're going to leave. And that was like my mindset getting into the apprenticeship. I was like, I'm just here to learn. Like, that's it. And then I'm going to leave. And so then I met the co-owner of the shop now. Her name's Haley. Me and her started our apprenticeship at the same time. So we're kind of trauma bonded by the experience. Made us really close friends. And so it got to the point where we were like a year into working there. And I was giving him 40% of everything I made. So I make $1,000 on a tattoo. He was getting $400 of it. And this is someone who was verbally harassing me and constantly putting me down. Like, you're not good enough. You call yourself a fucking artist. Like, I had people coming up to me in the tattoo shop asking me if I was safe. People I didn't even know. That's how bad it was. He would full on scream at me in front of an entire shop of people. Yeah. It was it was bad. And like, you could talk to anybody in my shop now because 6 of us left and followed us with, when we opened our own shop. And like all of them have crazy stories about the experience, but
all under the same guy.
Yeah. And so I was a year into working there. We already knew like from the get-go like how it was going to be and how we were going to be treated, and we're just like nose down and learn the things you need to learn.
Right.
But a year in, when I started making decent money, I started putting the numbers down and being like, oh my gosh, like I could own a shop off of the money I'm giving this man. Like I would have enough money that I'm paying him to be paying rent on a different shop, because I was paying his rent in a week.
Really?
Yeah. And so when I figured that out, I was like, well, like, why am I here? Like, why am I doing this?
Right.
And so that's when me and her really sat down and we were like, okay, like we need to figure something out. We're going to open our own shop. This is ridiculous. And people say that the mistreated employees make the best bosses. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but
I mean, I haven't heard that verbatim, but I can absolutely see how it would be applicable.
I didn't know exactly how I wanted to run the business, but I knew exactly how I didn't want to run it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So he gave me a lot of insight in that way of what not to do. And so I feel like that's why we're so successful now. But after we had so many setbacks and difficulties when trying to open the shop, because I was 20 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I always, in the tattoo industry, always was questioned and doubted with my artistic ability too. Like if I was doing a walk-in, like randomly people would think that I didn't know what I was doing, or, because they see like an old guy sitting next to me and they're like, I want him,
They think he has more experience. They think that he can do better.
That dude's going to fuck your tattoo up, and I'm not. But, it's just the perception of like, oh, that's a child. They don't know what they're doing, which that never really bothered me. But when I got into finding a building for our tattoo shop, it got really evident that that was the case, because I would pull up to these buildings to view with the real estate agent, and I would bring a contractor to run comps on how much renovations would be for each building. And the real estate agent would talk to my contractor about the comps.
Just go right around you?
Didn't even look at me. Directly talk to my contractor that wasn't even the one gonna buy the building or anything. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. Like, there's no respect at all. And then whenever I tried to ask anything to the real estate agent, they would throw out some ridiculous number. And I'm like, I'm not stupid. Like, I know that's nothing what the price point for this would be. But they just try to diminish you and devalue you, and they don't think that you're capable of, like they feel like you're wasting their time.
Oh, yeah. They see a young person, naive and stuff. Oh,
you can't afford this.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't even know anything about me. And like that was really hard. So I spent a year looking for a building. That was actually one of the hardest parts, is trying to find the right building. But I actually met a real estate agent, and he was showing me a building that I wasn't trying to see. And so I was like, this isn't the building that I wanted to look at. But he treated me with such respect that I was like, hey, can you show me the building I do want to see, even though it wasn't his? And so he ended up working with us on the building that we ended up getting. And it's this building from the 60s. It looked crazy when we first got it. It needed a bunch of renovations, but it had all of the things that I wanted. It's a standalone building. It's over like 2,000 something square feet. So it's way bigger than it looks too. And every time someone comes in there and they walk past the first room, they're like, oh my gosh, this goes back way farther than I thought it did. And it's a little surprise for everyone. But yeah, we got to really dictate everything about like what the inside looked like, what the outside looked like. So
wow,
it was a lot of planning, writing numbers down, doing projections, because no one's going to give you a loan if you don't have the numbers and the stuff to show. So it was a lot of pre-planning that had to be done. And I had to get the zoning for the building. So I did have to go to court and present in front of a jury, like a presentation on why this needs to be zoned the way that it does, and make sure that the community would be okay with that.
Right.
So that was a big issue when we were trying to get approved for the building, because obviously we're not going to get the building unless we have the zoning for it. So that's a little bit of a background on kind of the startup for the business.
Where did you learn about doing all of like the permit zoning and like it, like everything that you were mentioning, it doesn't seem like it's just like, I guess maybe you could Google it and be like, how do you do this?
Yeah, it's very much like a learn as you go, especially when opening a business. It's very much like leap before you look.
Yeah.
Because you have to just start doing the things in the right order, and then you'll start getting more things and be like, oh, I need that too, and I need that too, and I need that too. And you don't know all the things you need to do right off the bat. You just gotta, once you see that you have to do it, then that's when you do it, and that's when you learn about it. Because like, I didn't know much about the zoning or permits before I started looking for buildings. And as soon as I started looking for buildings is when I started learning all about this, because Tempe is insanely strict on tattoo shops. Like,
really?
There's so many random things too that you wouldn't know as the general public about all of these regulations. But one of the big things was that we didn't want to be in Tempe because that it's a lot harder to get zoning and permitting in Tempe. So we were trying to look kind of around there. But yeah, I learned all about it during the process, and it was just a learning experience. I know so much more about architecture, construction, like engineering, like all these random things now just by doing the things that I needed to do, especially with the permitting process with getting construction stuff done. The permitting process to get any construction stuff done is ridiculous. I had to call, like, I'm not even exaggerating, like 20 times a day, the same lady.
Really?
Just to get a permit for our bathroom remodel. It was ridiculous, and it stopped all of our construction for 2 months until I could get that permit. No one would pick up the phone at the city. It's like all of these things that they don't tell you in school. And you could get a business degree, and they're not going to tell you how to get a permit from the city. Like,
oh, yeah.
You need to.
I always tell people that when they are going to school for something like business, it's not, at least from my experience, I didn't go to school for business. I did like a little certificate type of thing of like specific entrepreneurship rather than business. But for what I've seen with others that take business classes, it doesn't teach you how to open, run, and operate your own business. It teaches you how to more manage other businesses or like be
a lot of the like logistics and number sides of things. But it's like these real life scenarios of, I got denied this permit that was going to push us forward with all the other parts of the construction. I called and I called and I called, and they said no. And I was like, why? You're going to tell me why. You're not getting off this phone until you tell me exactly why this is a no. And then this lady's on the phone explaining to me all of these things, and I'm like, none of that has anything to do with our permit that we're trying to get.
You think she was just bullshitting you a little bit?
Well, I think that it was really that the city is insanely busy and unorganized when it comes to the permitting process. And so we were trying to get a PBI, permit by inspection, which is one of the quickest ways to get permits and construction stuff done. So that's the one that we were trying to go for. And we had all of the right criteria for it. But a lot of the times for bigger remodels, they're not going to fit that criteria. And so when she hears like tattoo shop, she's like, oh, there's all these things that go into a tattoo shop that's not going to work for this PBI. But the thing was, we only were remodeling the bathroom. That was the only thing we were remodeling, and that was just to fit like the codes. And so she didn't know that, and so the first answer is just no. And I don't know why she's saying no, and she doesn't know anything about our permit. But she's so busy, and the city's so unorganized that she gets calls every single day, and it's like, not going to listen to everyone's story when it's most of the time it's a no.
Right.
But me asking her that and being like, no, why? Like, I'm not just going to take a no for an answer, which I got a lot of trouble in school for that, because I was never just the kid that was like, okay, I'm going to do what you say with no reason for it. But it's crazy because later in life, like, very much pays off to be that way. Because,
absolutely.
Yeah, she explained it to me, and I was like, well, that has nothing to do with what we're trying to do. And she was like, oh, okay, send me an email over with your plans.
Yeah.
I was like,
I think that's what makes also kind of like a successful business owner, is that more investigative type of attitude rather than just like taking a blank answer and being like, okay, cool.
I'm gonna give up.
Yeah. Rather than like, well, it's possible. So we're going to figure out how this happens. We're going to figure out why. And obviously, like, if it's a money thing, okay, whatever, fine. But if it's because of this and this and this. Because a lot of times it's like you said, there's disorganization. There's so much happening and stuff. They have their initial stuff to just hopefully blow off the 90% of people who are just like dreaming or hoping for something. And then it's like, you know what? If there's any turmoil, I'm going to take it as a sign that's not meant to be. Yeah. And we're just not going to do it versus like, okay. But those are also like, I feel like the obstacles that kind of weed out the ones who are serious versus who aren't serious.
Yeah, and we would have been able to get a permit regardless. But the thing is, if we didn't get the PBI, the permitting process would have taken months.
Really?
Instead of like 1 month. So it would have been tens of thousands of dollars that we would have lost. I didn't have any money like that when we were opening. I went from having $60K to negative 500 when I opened the business. Really? I put everything into it. I had credit card debt when I started. I had never had credit card debt before. And so it was like the first week of opening, I'm like, wow, I'm in debt and I have nothing. I'm like, hope this works. Fuck.
How long was it until you finally were able to reach a profit point?
Honestly, we probably started profiting within like 4 months, which is insane for a business turnaround time. Businesses are usually in the red for the first like 2 to 3 years.
And it wasn't just you, it was you and a couple other artists that were starting there?
So when we first left the old shop, it was 6 of us. So me, Haley, and then 4 other people that came with us. And there was probably only maybe 10 people working at the last shop.
Okay.
So we took a good chunk of people, and the owner was not happy about that. The police were involved, so.
Oh shit, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I'm assuming that's kind of the iffy topic to get into.
I could tell the story, but the thing is I don't want to focus on the negative aspects of the last shop because like that doesn't matter to me.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, it seems like it was all a learning experience though. Like,
yeah.
Even though you had possibly like those negative experiences at this last shop, it still taught you how to be an artist. It still taught you.
Oh, I'm very grateful. I would not be the person I am today if I didn't have that. And I have immense amount of patience now.
Yeah.
Because of that experience and knowing that we were into a better opportunity but wasn't there yet. Mm-hmm. We had to wait and keep our mouths shut because it was a big secret for 2 years. Yeah. Like all 6 of us knew, but no one was saying anything.
Were you the only one that was putting money into this? Or was it like just partnership?
It was me and Haley that were putting money into it. Okay. So there was obviously me and her, the co-owners. So it was just me and her doing that. But we had people like the artists helping us paint things and just kind of move things. So we had a lot of help from one of my clients is actually a plumber and he saved me like $20,000 worth of plumbing work.
Damn.
Haley's husband's an electrician and he saved us, I don't even know how much money worth of electrical work. I have this army built around me of people that just can do things and help because they want to. It's crazy.
That's really cool. With opening like the shop, I had a question. I'm trying to get back on the train of thought for it. So I'm trying to see how long my voice is going to last. I just got over like a week or two, whatever respiratory things going around.
Yeah.
And it shot my voice last week. I just got done filming a movie last week.
Not great for a podcast.
I know. I was like, oh shoot, because I was scheduling this. And I'm like, wait, I used my voice for this. So we're going to see how long it lasts. But what was your kind of outside of the tattoo shop life looking like while you're doing all this? Because obviously like if you're living at home you don't really have to worry too much about like paying for rent and stuff on top of doing all this. Were you like living at home or were you on your own?
So I moved out of my parents' house when I was 17 to go to college because I graduated a year early.
Okay.
But then I moved down to Tempe to work at the shop, and then right when everything started picking up, I moved back into my mom's house. I actually wasn't paying her rent, which is amazing because if I was paying rent too, I wouldn't be able to afford anything, honestly.
Gotcha. Okay, so you were able to kind of put all the money that you had made and were making into this craft, rather than trying to pay. Because I know that is one big kind of setback for a lot of people. They have all this overhead of their current life and stuff. Like even for me now, I have rent and all this other stuff. And so it's like, I would love to be able to put 100% of everything I make into the craft. And I know it would make that much more success out of it.
Yeah.
But it's hard when you do have everyday life expenses.
I feel like it's really important for people to run the numbers, because if you can save X amount and you know that your startup cost is going to be X amount and that's how much you need to save, that's kind of your goal of what you need to get to, especially if you're looking for a loan.
Yeah.
Is more important.
So you were mentioning earlier, it was 40% of everything that you were making was going to this guy. What is the typical kind of numbers, I guess, or like what do you have your artists pay you as the owner?
So I've only ever worked in that shop, but I knew that I wanted to set things up differently. So I didn't want the person making the most money to be paying the most money. So the way that I set my shop up is I have a sliding scale that everybody's on the same scale. I don't control anybody's percentage. Everybody starts at 30%. And basically, if you hit a certain number in the 2 weeks that you work, the next 2 weeks your percentage will drop. And that percentage will drop anywhere from like the 30 that you start at to 5% is the lowest that it could drop to. So if you're making around $1,500 a day, you'd be dropping 5%, which would be like $70. Because the people making the most money shouldn't be paying the most. You know, like you should be rewarding people for their efforts, especially if it's commission based. You want to be able to keep people in, not have them go and start their own studio.
Yeah. Because that's a big thing because I've seen a lot of people that like will work at the same studio forever. Did you always want to open your own studio?
No, absolutely not. I did not want to own a tattoo shop. Haley, the co-owner, is actually the one that she's always wanted to own a tattoo shop. It was her dream. And so I told her, I was like, I don't want to do this. Like, if we do this, eventually I want to go and travel. Like, I want to go to expos, I want to travel, I want to do all of that. And so we kind of made a deal where she was like, okay, like if we do this together, then eventually like you'll be able to go and do that, and like I'll hold down the fort. Okay,
so you have that kind of deal with her then, with being able to go do your own thing. You'll still be a part owner in it. That way you have like a home base to come back to, but then you can kind of... Would you be spreading that same brand still on the road?
Yeah, so we also have a clothing brand too that we've had it for a long time, but we're going to work on like monetizing it and getting into TikTok shop and stuff like that. So even if I was traveling, like obviously it'd be still promoting the shop, and it would be good for business regardless, especially winning expos. Like if I could get to the point where I'm winning an expo and then like representing a brand.
You were also mentioning something that I didn't know anything about. I have tattoos, but I know tattoo artists, but we surprisingly don't really talk about a whole lot about their career. I wasn't aware of it being a predatory type of industry.
Yeah, it's crazy. You talk to like pretty much any girl that has worked in a tattoo shop and you'll get a similar story regardless of where in the country they are at. So that was like a main reason why we wanted to open our own tattoo shop, is we wanted to change the industry in that way and kind of make it a more safe and welcoming place. Like my apprentice, they were off yesterday and I walked in and I'm like, what are you doing here? And they were like, well, didn't have anything else to do, so I wanted to hang out. And it's just, that's the kind of environment that we give at my shop. It's just like a family. Like we planned a Mexico trip in April, and the whole shop's gonna go, and we had one of our artists, it was her 21st birthday, and we all like threw a birthday party for her, and we're all together. It's just, I wanted to build more than a work environment. I wanted to build a community.
I love that, and that's kind of circling back to that quote that you were talking about earlier with like the most like abused employees make the best business owners, because the amount of jobs that I've had to where like I've had really good ideas to build their businesses. I've had this like just idea after idea that I'm shot down or just treated really badly. I'm like, if I was running this, it would be so much smoother.
Yeah, I learned from my apprentices too. Like you can learn from anyone. It doesn't matter how much time they've been doing it for. They could have learned something that you have no idea about, and you shouldn't ever shoot anyone's idea down. Like, that's just being closed-minded.
Yeah. So you picked up your first tattoo gun, you were 18, I'm
18,
assuming?
yeah.
Okay, so you've been in it now for four years?
Yeah, it'll be like almost 4 years, probably around April.
But you were already like kind of sketching and drawing and stuff.
Oh, I drew my entire life. I drew, painted, charcoal, scratch board, clay, like anything I could get my hands on to create, like I was doing growing up.
Was there different types of obstacles going from just like scribbling on paper to skin?
The way that I would describe tattooing is 3D drawing, because if you're drawing with a pen and paper, you're doing it on a 2D plane, but once you have skin involved, there's depth. So it's basically you're controlling your like X, Y axis, but also the Z axis, because you have to control the needle depth. So it's a whole different ballpark, you know, and you've got curves on the body and there's different skin types, and there's so much to tattooing that it's, if you're learning to tattoo at home and you don't have someone being like, hey, you're doing that wrong, like you're never going to be amazing at it.
There's definitely a rise of like the at-home tattoo machines and stuff.
Yeah.
Does that stuff kind of piss you off?
No, it doesn't piss me off. I just hope people are doing it in a sterile way. And it's also, a lot of people don't know that it's illegal in Arizona. And I think that people who tattoo at home don't realize that they could, if somebody sued them, like if they were unhappy with the tattoo they got and they sued them, like they would be fucked. And a lot of people don't realize that. Like,
I didn't even know you could sue.
Yeah.
I have nothing but fucked up tattoos.
Yeah. Well, if you go to a real shop and you sign paperwork, you're not gonna be able to do shit in court.
Yeah.
But if you get something done by someone at home, they don't have paperwork, they're doing it illegally, like, and you sue them, they're gonna be fucked over by that. And a lot of people don't realize that when they're making a business at home, it's built on a really unstable foundation. Like illegally, you're in a lot of risk doing it that way.
What were some of like the biggest obstacles that you saw or that you encountered when not only becoming an artist, but then becoming the business owner?
I think that the biggest obstacle is finding that balance between friends and boss. Because I have a very friendly approach, and I'm so grateful because the people that work for me are just the most amazing people, and I don't ever have to ask anyone twice to do anything. And I think that that's just like a mutual level of respect. I respect them and they respect me. So if I ask something of them, it's not something I wouldn't do myself. And I'll never ask them to do something I wouldn't do myself. And I think that's why I never get that I have to ask twice, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that is one of the hardest things, is balancing that relationship, because yes, we are friends and yes, we are family-like, but at the end of the day, it's a business, and we all work for the business, not just you. I work for the business too, and I'm going to put the business first if that's what needs to be done.
It's such a hard, like, I don't think people understand how hard, it's like when you start a business, the first person you want to employ is your friends.
Yeah.
The first person you want to have working with you is your friends. I used to have an event company, and all I did was employ my friends. But the second money started getting involved with stuff, like, I've never had friendships end quicker than...
Oh, yeah, I don't think I would really... I wouldn't try to employ friends.
Yeah.
But it was funny because one of my friends was sitting at the shop, and one of the apprentices came by, and I was like, yo, go check out the trash. Like, go take out the trash. And my friend was like, if you talk to me like that, I don't know what I would do. And he was like, I forgot that you're their boss and that you can talk to them like that. Like, you can just tell them to do things and it's not rude. And I was like, yeah, that's why you don't employ friends, because you don't have the same, like, the respect level's not the same, because they're an equal, you know?
Yeah.
And, like, not that everyone is equal in the business, but there is that, like, if I tell you to do something as a boss, you're going to do it.
Was it kind of a weird feeling or experience becoming an employer / like boss?
I mean, I growing up, I was always told that I was bossy, so I feel like I just like went into the role real smoothly. But again, finding that balance of not asking somebody to do something if you wouldn't do it yourself is so important.
Yeah, that was a big kind of philosophy that I was trying to pick up with. I had a big thing with, I wanted to own like a nightclub, not just like a janky ass, like a lot of the stuff that you might see in like Tempe or whatever, but like upscale, you like if you're going, you dress up. You don't just go in whatever colors or whatever, like suit and tie type of stuff, like big stuff. But I also realized that like I didn't want to be the type of boss that was assigning people to do stuff. Like I hated the mentality or the feeling of like, this guy doesn't even know how hard my job actually is.
Yeah.
He's trying to make me do this and this and this, but he doesn't realize, like, that's why I always was like, I want to be the hardest worker here. I want to, if I'm asking you to do something, it's because I've done it a million times.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of like the people that we have at the shop, they don't see the 2 years that me and Haley like really put into it. Cause I work 6 days a week. Like I only have one off day, and I've only had one off day for 2 years now, you know. I started out tattooing, working 2 full-time jobs, and then I was working overtime, you know, opening the shop and doing all these things, and I still only have one day off a week, and I would say I'm the hardest worker at the shop. But I think discipline and making sure you're not being a hypocrite are the biggest things that need to be done as a boss, because if there's an issue on the lower levels of the tiers, something's wrong with the leader.
Oh yeah.
And so that's the mindset that I've really adopted with, like, if something's not being done, I'm doing something wrong. I'm not communicating properly. I'm not leading by example. You know, if people aren't there on time, am I being there on time? Am I going to ask them to be there when they don't have an appointment if I'm leaving right when my appointment's over? So it's like doing all of these things and really checking myself to make sure, like, I'm not ever going to ask them to do something I wouldn't do.
Yeah.
So if I want them there when they don't have an appointment, I need to be there when I don't have an appointment.
Yeah.
I need to lead by example and show them the way.
Where did you kind of learn that mentality? Like, did you always have that mentality of like leading by example, the hardcore discipline? Because to hold down 2 full-time jobs, to be able to like work 6 days a week doing all that, like obviously you're doing what you love, so it might not feel as like if you're working in a grocery store 6 days a week. I'm sure you'd probably...
I think it's really hard for people when they don't see long-term something being beneficial. Because, like, let's say you're working 6 days a week at a grocery store. You have no plans outside of that to grow.
Right.
What's making you drive to show up every day, 6 days a week, if you know that that's not going to pay out in the end? For me, it was a no-brainer. I'll work full-time 2 jobs if it means that I'm going to be doing what I love for the rest of my life, you know? It's about having that long-term goal mindset and being like, I'm doing this to get to this for a reason, not just to work for somebody else.
How do you balance everything? Like, obviously, I know that you have your full-time 6-day-a-week job at the tattoo shop.
Oh, I do even more than that. I go to classes in the morning. I go to the gym in the morning. Like, I go to jujitsu. I
really?
do all kinds of things. It's got to be super structured. And I also realize that the more time that you have, the more you end up wasting time.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I have an off day, and I really, like, this is very rare for me that I don't have anything to do. There's always something to do. But, like, let's say around the holidays, I had, like, a random day that I was like, it's Christmas. Like, I don't have anything to do right now. It's like, I'm doom scrolling on TikTok. It's like, oh my gosh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
But as soon as I'm like, I have my schedule, I'm waking up at this time, going to these classes that I love, getting to interact with all these people that I love. I'm on a tight schedule. I got to be home by this time, to shower by this time, to get to work by this time, blah, blah, blah. Like, don't have any time to doom scroll. I'm so busy, and I'm so, like, involved in my life and so present that, like, there is no time to be doing other things.
Where did you learn that structure? Or how do you feel like that kind of came around? Like, do you think you picked that up, like, from your family or parents, or was that just, like, a natural thing that kind of got built?
Definitely didn't pick it up from my parents, that's for sure. I think that just kind of, I've always been a very observant person, and I like to reflect a lot. So when I do realize things, that's when I start to make changes. And when I realize that I have, like, if I have more time, I'm not as structured, that's when I'm like, okay, I need to fill my time with something that's going to be beneficial to me, you know? And I really love learning about, I go to Krav Maga, so it's a lot of weapons training, self-defense training, which is super.
That and jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, and so I do jiu-jitsu like every other week with my old kickboxing coach, and I love her. She's great. So I'll do that like kind of on the side. But Krav is like the main MMA that I do.
Okay.
Which is, it's just great for my brain because I love I love the weapons training and all of that. It's super exciting for me, and I get like a lot of enrichment out of it.
I definitely relate to the whole keeping busy thing.
Filling your time.
I don't like off days. Like, and I know that that's going to sound really weird, but if I have a day coming up and I don't have anything scheduled for that, it gives me anxiety.
Yeah.
It gives me that sense of like, well, shit, what do I do? Like, I literally, so I used to work in finance for like 4 years. And with that, it was the most boring, unfulfilling thing ever. I had the same 9 to 5, Monday through Friday type of thing, but then off days, like, I was brand new to Phoenix, didn't have any friends around here and stuff, and I was literally just at home watching TV all day, doom scrolling, all that.
And it doesn't fulfill you.
No, it's literally like you're just watching other people enjoy their lives.
It's literally our society is the issue, and what we're raised into consumerism under capitalism. That's the problem. It's not your problem for doom scrolling. You've been fed an algorithm that can pick up what you like and captivate you and keep you addicted to your phone.
And even now, I have the busiest schedule I've ever had, and still
you open that app and you're like, I just wasted like 20 minutes.
I'm like, okay, like even today, I went home and I'm like, cool, I have like 30 minutes. I can just chillax for a little bit. I can maybe cook some lunch or something, do that. What did I do? I fucking scrolled through Facebook for half hour and stuff.
It's so bad.
And it knows. That's the thing that also like kind of pisses me off about all that. It's not just like, oh, like entertainment. Like, if the app notices that you're not going on a whole lot, there was a documentary that came out. I don't know if you watched it, but it was a bunch of old people from like Facebook and Instagram and all that were kind of outing the companies themselves and kind of explaining the whole things and the fact that they were actually hiring like psychologists and stuff to come in and figure out like, okay, what's going to release dopamine and stuff in these people? What's going to do all this? And like trying to figuring out the neuropsychology behind, okay, we need to figure out a way to get people not only on it, but to stay on it, because then advertisers will pay us, and then
it's capitalism
doing that whole thing. And it was just like the most crazy thing ever to me, because I'll see my my For You page or whatever changing every 2 days or something based off of this. Like, I'll be like,
I want to go back to your question about how did I learn how to do all of this, because obviously I didn't know shit about anything.
Yeah.
Social media success, business success, life success. I realized doom scrolling, obviously that messes with you a lot. But if you can learn to curate your For You page, because what I would do, especially when I was learning about social media marketing and stuff like that, I have ADHD. I don't want to look at videos like if I'm not interested in them.
Right.
I definitely don't want to watch a 5-minute video of this dude telling me how to post a video. Like, that's so boring.
Yeah.
But the thing that I would do is when I got those videos, I would comment, like I would save just to get more of those videos. And it kind of washes the crap out of your For You page, and it rewires your For You page to only give you beneficial stuff. So I ended up learning marketing, business, tattooing, like whatever I was focused on at the moment, I was curating more my For You page to give me more stuff about that.
Really?
Yes.
That's just really smart. I kind of unintentionally did that the other day, to where I spent 5 minutes looking up only like quote of the day or affirmations to give yourself, and just like continuously doing that.
It's that intentional learning, and that was the biggest switch that I had when I would get on TikTok, especially when I was learning to grow my TikTok account. Is I would open the app and I would go in with the mindset of I'm not here for entertainment. I'm here to learn. I'm here to look for trending audios. I'm here to like observe. And when you switch your mind into that place where you're like, I'm not being entertained right now, I'm looking for something specific, then it's a whole different ballpark.
You have, I saw, like, one of the first things I noticed about, like, your stuff, like, especially for just, like, a local business, you have not only, a substantial amount of followers, but one of the things that really kind of caught my eye about your profile specifically, which is one of the things that I've been looking, because when I first started this podcast, I was just trying to find, like, people like, oh, he has 100,000 followers, I want to book him, boom, 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 and then I get them on, and I'd think that, okay, cool, this is going to help and everything. But then I'd go back and see engagement. There would be like 100,000 followers within 5 comments or something. and kind of going through that. But then your stuff, I'm noticing continuously the same, like at least 40 to 50,000 views per video. Doesn't matter what it is, sometimes obviously more. What was the process of kind of learning how to be successful in that?
This is what I learned after I switched from doom scrolling is people don't want to be marketed to. People want to know you. We're social creatures. We want the human experience. We want to feel that connection. And it's really changing my content from being like marketing, like this is what my product is, buy my product. No, I'm a person. I want people to know me. I want people to know my story. I want to be able to help people in a way that's not just based on tattoos. It's so much more than that. And I think building my brand in that way, allowing people to know me more on a personal and deeper level is what gets those people to really be like consistent and want to come back and engage with you and support you and stuff like that. This guy at the gym ran into me yesterday, and he walked up to me and he was like, been following your page for 2 years now.
Oh,
like,
shit.
Like, I love your work. Like you're doing great. Like, I just want to say like I love your stuff. And I was like, you've been following me since I was at the last shop. Like, that's crazy. That I only had like 8,000 followers back then. I was like, you were one of the original ones.
At what point did you start seeing like the huge substantial growth in like I didn't even know that, like I don't know how big your TikTok is. I haven't seen your TikTok. I only saw your Instagram. But at what point did you start actually seeing like a big type of...
So I didn't ever have that crazy growth on TikTok or Instagram like right when it started out, because there was a lot of, you had one video blow up and then you get 100,000 followers. That doesn't work on TikTok anymore. I had a video blow up, it got over 2 million views and I got maybe a couple thousand followers. So the algorithm is way different. There's a lot less bots now. I started seeing this substantial growth on Instagram specifically when I got one of my videos to blow up finally on Instagram, and it was of a full sleeve that I did. And I mean, there's a lot of people in Arizona, so a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, you're like right next to me, this is local. You know? And that's what people really like to see, because you could see a million tattoo artists on the internet, but it's like, when am I going to get tattooed by that dude? He's in Korea. You know? So a lot of people finding an account that's local, especially in Arizona, there's so many people that are looking for good tattoo shops and good tattoo artists. They were like, finally, I found one.
That's because I noticed, like, even with like my page, like the podcast page on Instagram, I've had a couple videos like go big, not a single follower from that. So it's such a hard, and that's one of the reasons, like I know a lot of people that are in like the whole social media marketing type of stuff and doing all that, and the way that they kind of structure their videos, I'm noticing that like you have to be so consistent with figuring out what's working and stuff. Because followers don't mean shit. I'm sorry, but like followers don't mean shit anymore.
It's about the view count and the engagement. The engagement's always going to up the view count. And basically on TikTok, I just had a video blow up, and it was basically me asking the audience if they would allow a tattoo artist to do anything the tattoo artist wanted with no input. And that video blew up, and I was like, all right. I made 3 more videos with the exact same hook, and they all blew up too. So it's like, when you find something that works, like, use that, you know?
There was a guy I heard about in New York City that it was like this hole in the wall thing. You literally like stick your arm in a hole in the wall.
And then you get a tattoo?
Yeah, you don't get to choose it. And I've asked a lot of people, like, would you do that? And they're like, absolutely fucking not. And for me, I'm like, I 100% would. It's so 50-50 on that video that people were arguing in the comments, and like arguments is the best for engagement. That's part of the thing, because I've worked with some of like these marketing guys and stuff, and like I'll kind of work with a lot of them in the companies, and I'll sit there and kind of like try to come up with a little bit of like, okay, how are we gonna do this type of stuff, and they're like, oh, we're just gonna do a thing. Hi, my name is blank. I've been in this industry for this, and this is. I'm like, you're gonna get no views. You need to have like some bullshit. And they're like, there's like, the engagement comes from interaction, and people aren't gonna interact unless there's something to interact with. If you're a drywall company here, you're one of 50 million drywall companies here. If you're just saying like, hey, if you want good drywall, then come over here, versus like if you're doing like the ones that I've seen go off, they're like, they incorporate some sort of really random piece into it. And they're like, oh shit. And then kind of getting
I think outside the box really with social media, and that's with my apprentices too, is I'm not just teaching them tattooing, I'm teaching them business skills, life skills, and a lot of social media skills. I'm constantly on their ass, like, did you post today? Did you post today? Like, let me see the video, let me see how you're editing it. Like, I even have like a content plan for like one of my apprentices. She does a lot of cyber sigillism. I was like, this is how we're going to structure your Instagram so it looks different than like everybody else's. And it's really important for them to be learning, because when they first come in an interview with me, because I've had lots of interviews with different apprentices and different artists, and I need to see that you're different.
Yeah.
I can't see, like, I've had so many people come in with a portfolio. I'm looking through the portfolio. It's traditional flash, Pinterest tattoo. I'm like, there is no personality in this. Like, yeah, you might be able to get a tattoo apprenticeship. You might get decent at tattooing, but will you ever be successful in this industry? No.
So what do you look for then?
I look for originality is really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something that's going to put somebody away from the pack. If they can show me that they're going to do something different than what everybody else is doing, then I'm like, that's a yes. Doesn't matter if you're doing traditional, doesn't matter if you're doing realism, cyber sigillism. Show me that you're different.
I don't even know what that word is. Cyber what?
Cyber sigillism is basically like Gen Z's tribal. It's how they like to describe it.
That was so my first tattoo, I was 15, 16. And that one, artist fucked that one up.
It happens.
Yeah. Well, it was the same artist that did my mom's first tattoo, and so it was kind of like my mom.
It's always how it happens.
In our household, it was not taboo at all to get tattoos. It's your body, your choice. Do whatever the hell you want. And for like, we were very pro tattoo. If you want to get a piercing, if you want to do anything like that. So it was like Friday the 13th type of tattoo, and Originally, I had a really badass design, but then I was just like, I can't fit all that into that little thing. I'm like, okay, so I had to do something basic, and it was awesome. And then I went to another place, and he was like, oh, you're still 17. I can't do anything that's like can't be covered by a shirt. So, like, because I had like a full half sleeve design. He's like, I can do it like down to here. And I'm like, yeah, fuck, okay. And so that, and then at that point though, tribal was still pretty cool. Like,
hey, it looks good on some people. Like,
yeah, I mean, I liked the look for tribal, and like my dad has a tribal that's like a little bit more abstract and stuff, but like I had like a jiu-jitsu coach who had like a full tribal sleeve. I thought it was the most badass thing ever. I don't know. It was just like one of those things that like I just thought was a really cool design type of thing. But then obviously like 6 years later, it was like, what's the biggest ick on a guy? And like a tribal tattoo, and I'm like, fuck.
I had a client too that I was doing a tattoo on him, and he was so worried about it not being trendy in 10 years. And I was like, dude, why are you getting this because you like it? And he was like, well, I like it, but I don't know if everyone else is going to like it in 10 years. And I was like, why the fuck do you care then?
What's your thoughts on, because I know that there's been a lot of different trends with tattoos.
I love it. I love seeing the different trends, and I love incorporating different trends into each other. Sometimes I'll throw like Japanese traditional in my realism. It's just fun. Like, you can do whatever you want, like as long as the client's happy.
Because I know that there was like and there's still big trends with like getting like the thigh tattoo like right above the kneecap and stuff. There's part of me like, if it's something that you know that you're gonna like for a while, awesome. But there's also part of me that I don't know if they realize of how permanent that decision is. So I don't know. It's kind of like when I see that, I'm like, cool, you're hopping on a trend, but this isn't just like in a year.
I think it's fun. It's like everyone's in like a little club. Like, you guys all like it at the same time. You guys are in a little tattoo club now. You got the same one.
So as an artist then, what's the most annoying tattoo that you'll get requests for? That you'll still do it, but you're just like, fuck.
I don't do any tattoos I don't want to do anymore, because I'm at the place where people will hit me up and I have enough people where I can do creative freedom on every single tattoo I do. So I don't have any tattoos that are annoying to do anymore, which is nice, because I'm really focusing on making my work stand out and be different and trying to have that outside of the box look to my stuff. But when I was first starting out, there's so many different things that you run into that I get to see my apprentices going through what I went through, like with having those rough clients that are like, they don't have the budget, or they're super picky, or they want it, the size of their thumbnail and it's like a full portrait. There's so many things that won't work as tattoos that you'll run into as a tattoo artist learning about the industry and about what people want. And there's so many misconceptions about what is possible and what will look good over time.
Yeah.
Especially with microrealism, like picking up speed.
For you, with standing out, what have you kind of learned about yourself that kind of makes you stand out as, like, with your work? Like, what kind of stuff do you specifically focus on?
So my art's always been really weird. One of my favorite artists was Salvador Dali. He's a surrealism. He's basically the godfather of surrealism, which is dreamlike work, kind of things that you wouldn't ever see in real life. It's those melting clocks.
Yeah.
Wouldn't see that happen in real life. So I always like to try to incorporate some kind of surrealism stuff into my work when I get that artistic freedom. And I really like faces and eyeballs and like monster and fantasy stuff. So I love the like dark, high contrast stuff that looks like that. And that's the stuff that's going to look good over time too. So painting wise, like if I'm doing other mediums, very different than tattooing. But with tattooing, I put myself into a place where I'm doing work that's going to look good over time. And that's my main concern.
Okay. I want to kind of get into some of the work that you have done as an artist. Obviously, you've been in it for 4 years. I'm sure you've done more tattoos than you can count. I'm sure, though, that there's a couple that kind of stand out that you kind of really remember on. So I kind of want to see, like, most intense piece that you can remember that you're like, I can't believe I fucking did that.
Well, I just recently did my first back piece. And that is one of my favorite pieces. He gave me a life and death theme and was like, do whatever you want. And I have a lot of personal beliefs about like death and the afterlife and ascension and all of these things. So I always like to put my own personal like twists into my tattoos, and not in a way that anybody would be able to tell that's what's going on, but in a way for me that I'm like, yeah, this is the kind of shit that I believe in.
Yeah.
So the life versus death back piece, it's really cool because I have the like face and the skull facing each other in the center with the portal in between them. And then the lower half is very satanic, like demon skull, goat skull, bat wings, skulls in the bottom. And then the top of it is like biblically accurate angel, cherubs. There's like a third eye opening, like ascension. So it's like you get the like duality of the two in this whole back piece. And I just love it.
Damn. How long did that take you?
It took 4 sessions, probably around like 6 to 8 hours each time. So like 20 to 30 hours, I would say.
Holy shit.
This man sat 3 days in a row on a back piece, back to back to back, driving down from Prescott every day. So a 2-hour drive there and back every day. And then he worked the day after too. And he's a flight nurse. So he's got 80 pounds on his back. I was like, dude, what are you doing? That's crazy.
That sounds painful. Like if you have stuff on your back, not even like letting it heal or anything.
He's crazy
between.
Guy.
Well,
Healed great though.
Yeah. It did?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What about, have you done any tattoos that you kind of wish you didn't do?
I don't think so. I think every tattoo I've ever done has just kind of been learning experience. I've always learned something no matter what it is. There's a lot of tattoos that I didn't love doing because they weren't like as original, but when you're starting out and you don't have that portfolio to show like, hey, this is what I can do, that's when you're doing a lot of things that are more basic and people are putting you in boxes and like, I want it exactly like this, and you're like, I just want to be an artist. Like, let me create. And they're like, no. And you're just like, okay.
I didn't know until the show Ink Master. I was watching that, and I didn't know that like there's certain parts of the body that just will not pick up ink and stuff that well, and like because of that, a lot of artists refuse to like tattoo certain parts of the body.
There's no parts of the body that don't pick up ink well. It's more so about how well the person's taking care of their skin. If you're tattooing like a hand piece on a blue collar worker, like good luck.
Yeah.
Because they got the driest hands in history. But if you're moisturizing, if you're drinking water, if you're taking care of, I mean, your skin's the largest organ on your body. And so if you're taking care of yourself, taking care of your skin, then you can tattoo anywhere and it'll be fine.
Are there any parts that you won't tattoo?
I mean, I won't tattoo genitals.
Okay. What about like eye tattoos? I didn't even know that was a thing.
I don't do eyeball tattoos are different than regular tattooing because you're not actually like blacking out the eyeball. You're basically like inserting the needle under the first layer of the eyeball, and it's just like letting the ink like flow into it. But there's also a risk of people going blind during that.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
So I mean, I do full day session surrealism stuff. Like that's what I like to do. So I'm not doing smaller like eyeball face tattoos, like stuff like that. It's just not really what I'm into.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm not even sure about how all that works. You're covered in tattoos, though, it looks like, at least from what I see.
Yeah.
I'm curious about like first tattoo for you. I know like these are like the cliche things that you'll probably always get asked, but like most painful. I know, especially for first timers that come in, they don't know what parts of the body are most painful. Like, oh, I just want to get like this right in the rib cage and stuff, and like they're like, oh, it'll be fine. It's not going.
Yeah. My first tattoo was the back of my right arm, which is a Salvador Dali painting.
Okay.
I mentioned him before. Love him. I got it when I was 17, and then my most painful tattoo was probably my chest tattoo. I sat for 9 hours straight on that.
Oh shit.
Very painful. And then for pain-wise on the body, it very much depends on the person. There are some like this is gonna be more painful or less painful on like a broader scale.
Yeah.
Like outside of the arms are usually the safest place. Ribs are usually more painful.
Mm-hmm.
Stomach's usually more painful. I usually say around the joints, around like the shoulder. Oh, my bad. Around the shoulder, wrist, elbow, inside of the elbow. Like around the joints are usually more painful.
Okay.
But again, it depends on the person and not just like if you have a higher pain tolerance than me, you could have a lower pain tolerance in one place and I could be like, that's fine.
Yeah.
It depends on people's nerves. Everybody has a different nervous system.
Mine's weird. My tricep, I can't do anything on my tricep. I've always like that's been my Achilles heel. I cannot. Yeah. I mean, I have one tattoo that kind of goes towards it, but any little bit of stuff on it, I cannot.
It'll always be some like little random spot that like you'll see a person who's completely covered and they'll be like, damn, the back of my calf though really got me. And it's just like, bro, you've got your whole head done.
Yeah.
And it was the back of your calf. Like every person that's like heavily tattooed has that like it was this one spot. That
yeah.
It's like, but it's always different.
So circling back a little bit to personal life, I guess. You mentioned that like so you were in college for architecture. You dropped out, drove your mom insane. How does your family and like parents and stuff feel now that like you're successful?
My mom's super giddy. She got 2 tattoos from me now.
Oh yeah.
she loves it now that she realizes it's a whole art form. I mean, she works at a hospital and like all of her coworkers know me. And so like I'll post something on social media and they'll come up to my mom and be like, your daughter did this, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And my mom's just like, shut up. Yeah, I know
I
I birthed her, obviously. Duh.
It's genetic.
Yeah.
The skills are genetic.
But no, she's so proud of me and my relationship with my mom is just like the best it's ever been now.
Really?
Yeah, she's one of my number one supporter, so the switch up's crazy.
How did that switch up happen? Because I had a similar thing. Like
she just wanted me to be successful, you know, and like she came from Wyoming where the only people were tattooed were drug addicts and criminals, and she saw her daughter going from this glamorous architecture student to drug addict prison tattoo artist, and she was like, what the hell?
Was architecture a career that you wanted to do personally, or was that kind of more like...
It was crazy too, because growing up I was always that artsy kid, and any art kid that you talk to will tell you that they were always told as a kid that art doesn't make money.
Yeah.
I was always told artists don't get famous or rich until they die, so that's never going to be a career path for you. Like you need to find something that's going to support you financially. That's the key to this world.
Yeah.
And so I was basically trying to find that balance between like what's going to make money and what's going to be kind of like art. And I really love home design, interior design. Like me and Haley designed our entire tattoo shop, like super cute and aesthetic. If you guys haven't seen it on Instagram. But yeah, so I was trying to find that medium between art and money. And I didn't know anything about the tattoo industry at that time. So I was like, architecture would be great because I love home, anything. I love architecture.
There was also, so last night I was trying to come up with like questions and stuff. And one of the biggest things that I try to ask people about their industries is stuff like AI, but I can't think of a way that AI would at all affect your industry. Like,
I actually just made like multiple TikTok videos about this.
really?
Yeah, because one of my clients recently, I made a design for him, and he came back and he's a graphic designer, and I think he used Journeys, and he made a bunch of reference photos with AI and put it together on Photoshop and sent me back a sleeve. And he was like, I was thinking more like this. And I was like, dude, what the fuck? You just designed a whole sleeve? Like, who are you? How did you do that? And he was like, oh, I just use like AI reference photos. And so I was like, all right, what photos you use? Like, send them over. And he was like, I really like the sleeve that I designed. Like, would you think you'd be able to incorporate any of these reference photos into the design? And so I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And I don't care how we get there as long as it looks really cool is all I care about. Because when people put me into a box, I don't mind it as long as we're not like making it look less good. Like when they start making it look worse, then I'm like, all right, I don't want to do this anymore. But if he's sending me like really cool AI reference photos and he's asking to do them and I can make it look cool in a really sick way, I'll use them. I don't mind that. And so I ended up putting a design together using half the stuff that I made and then half the stuff that he used. And he was like, that's super sick.
Yeah.
And so we're on our second session. We have like one more to go for the outside of his arm, and then we'll probably start the inside of his arm. But it's black and gray with blue mixed in, and it's all Greek mythology themed. So sick. It's so sick. It looks so good, and I'm super excited about it. And I think for realism tattoo artists, AI could be super beneficial for reference photos because we're taking reference photos of real images, usually pictures, but AI could change that because you'll see the same lion tattoo on 50 people that 50 different artists use because it's the best picture of a lion on the internet, but AI reference photos could make 50 new images of a lion, and they're all different and all unique. And I think that's amazing. AI is not going to be able to tattoo for you.
That was kind of where, because I know there was a product. I don't know if you saw it or heard about it. There was like a product. It was like a stamp tattoo. Like you peel it off and then you just you smash it into your arm and like all the little needles. And I'm like, the thing is like that would work maybe if it's just like just lines, but
not anything for realism.
You can't do anything with shading. You can't do anything.
Robots too. Yeah, maybe one day robots will be able to tattoo, but that will be a luxury item that most people won't be able to afford.
I also think that it's like, so my main career is the film industry, and there's always, I feel like, a part that people are always going to want something created by another human. They're not going to want, like, you can get a robot arm that can probably, like, I'm sure it's easily designable to get a robot arm that can tattoo. And it's just like you enter a picture and then it tattoos you. But there's also that personal thing, that like relationship you build. Like, I didn't even really, when I was first getting tattoos, it was always like I just give them the image and that. I didn't even really understand the whole concept of working with your artist to create a masterpiece, to create something. It was always just like, oh, I found this on Pinterest. Can you tattoo this? And then people like, oh, yeah, like, and hearing from like you and other artists and stuff, like, oh, yeah, we just designed this together. I'm like, oh, shit, I forgot.
Yeah, it was a lot of back and forth. And sometimes people will look at the design and be like, that's perfect, I love it. Or sometimes they'll put input in, but regardless, I'm always going to do something that I think will look good. And if they want me to do something specifically and I don't think it's going to look good, I'll be like, I'm not the right artist for you. I'm never going to tattoo them if I don't think like it'll look good in my eyes. I
think there's too many artists that will just take a job because they need the job or whatever, even if it's not something that is their specialty.
I'm grateful because I can do that.
Yeah.
I have an abundance of people that want to get tattooed by me, and I have the opportunity to be that way, but that's not the case for most artists. Like they can't do that, and so I don't like discredit them at all for being that way. They're trying to make money and they want to do art and they don't have the opportunity to choose.
I think it's a little bit of a half and half thing for me, because obviously people want to challenge themselves. If someone wants to get into doing portraiture and it's not their thing, but like if they can practice a little bit, they can start, like, I don't know how they would really practice a whole lot other than like maybe getting like the fake skin stuff and continuously doing that until they're able to do that. But I guess like the ones that I really kind of have issues with is just like the ones that's like, oh yeah, no, I can do, like They give the confidence that like someone will come in with like, hey, my grandma who died, I want her face.
Some artists really believe that their work is good though.
Yeah, and I'm like,
because like they'll post it everywhere, and I'm like, I genuinely don't know how you can't see that this looks like trash.
Yeah.
Because like you just fuck someone up and you don't even know you fucked them up. Like you thought it looked good, which is crazy. But the thing that I have an issue with is people like, yeah, someone will come in with a design, but it's your job as the artist to give them like an alternative. Because I didn't come into tattooing doing these crazy designs.
Yeah.
People don't come up to you being like, I want to get all of this crazy shit in this tattoo. Like most people don't even know anything about art when they're getting tattooed.
Right.
They're just kind of like, I have a concept or a picture that I like. It's your job as the artist, because I was making 2-3 designs. I'd make like a chill one that's like kind of like more so what they asked for.
Yeah.
I'd make a second one that was like a little bit more like what I wanted, and then I made a third like absolutely fucking crazy. Like I don't know if anyone would even get this, but I like it.
Yeah.
And you know, like 5% of the time they're gonna get that crazy ass one, but like they would have never picked that if they never saw it.
Yeah.
So you have to give them the choices, and then also make the one that you want to do too, and the one that they asked for, just to give them that.
Yeah. See, and that's a big thing that I'm even seeing that's already different about you as an artist. Every tattoo I have has been done by a different artist. Not a single artist has offered or tried to do any type of customization, personalization, any type.
See, that's the issue.
And like I'll go to them, I'm like, hey, like no, there was one that it was when because I had like my tribal here, but nothing was filled in. It was completely a blank stencil, and I'm like, I want to fill it in with something, but I don't want it to just be filled in. I want like either like a vignette or something, or just something in it. And then he was like, well, we can like make it like blades or something, or like make it look like that. I'm like, oh, cool. That's the closest I've had though. Like I literally, there was an apprentice I went to back in Flagstaff, and I mean the tattoo is good. Don't get me wrong. She did an amazing job, but it was the music note one, and I just showed her a picture, and she did exactly the picture. Now that I'm like older, I'm like, it would be cool if maybe she could have offered.
And
like,
a lot of the times, like when I was trying to start doing that,
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of clients. I didn't have a lot of money. I knew that I wanted to showcase what I wanted my art to be.
Yeah.
And so I like had someone walk into the shop and be like, hey, I've got $200. I would just want this like little line work piece. And I was like, well, I don't have any clients today. Like, I'll give you a $500 tattoo if you let me do what I want to do. And I'd do a full realism piece
Really?
on them. Yeah, because
That's cool.
That's what you have to do. Like, you can't just like be stingy and expect everyone to know that you can do what you want to do if you're not showcasing that.
I think that's part of being a true artist at heart with business too. Like, there'll be times like on the side I do videography. If I'm like booked to the max or whatever, like yes, like regular rates. But if I'm not busy at all, and someone comes like, hey, I need this video done, I'm like, if you let me kind of put a little spin on it, you let me like play around with edits a little bit, like I'll give you a deal. But I want some fun for myself. You
gotta have the passion and the love in it.
Yeah.
And that's those artists that take the thing that you showed them. They don't have the passion. They're just there to make money.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why like I've never gone back to a single one of those artists. I'm like, cool, you did exactly that. Like even this one, the ink pulled out and stuff a little bit, and like it's blown out in certain spots. And like I look later, I'm like, the lines aren't even fucking straight, bro.
Yeah.
And like I went to a tattoo expo to get it done, and it was, I don't know.
Just because you go to an expo doesn't mean that they're gonna be good.
Which I learned that the hard way, because like this guy, I mean, he had good work and stuff, and for me, my philosophy was it's just lines. You can't fuck up with lines.
That's so wrong. Lines are like the hardest thing to do in tattooing.
Like you haven't even seen the one on my chest. That one is. That one. I'm embarrassed to ever be shirtless in front of people because of that. And until I can finally get
covered. Finished.
Yeah, I have to get. But that one was a stupid one with a friend who had a tattoo gun that wanted to practice, and I'm like, and that was before.
And you let him tattoo your chest? I don't feel bad for you.
I only did that because it could be covered by a shirt. I told her that it needed to be somewhere that could be covered.
Put it like on your upper thigh, your whole chest, because like anytime you're at the
beach, no, it's not my whole chest. It's like a little part of
easy to cover up.
Yeah, like no, I would not do like a full chest piece. No, it's like a little part.
Okay.
But it was also like a very, very simple design.
It's like the simplest designs are the easiest one to fuck up.
And But that's also something that, as a person that's not in the industry, I don't know that as a consumer of tattoos. For me, I'm like, I can draw this on a piece of paper in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
There's a lot of stuff like that in the industry that people don't know about. They end up getting fucked over because of it.
What are some things as an experienced tattoo artist that you wish more people knew about?
There's so many things.
I guess like top 3 things.
That line work is the easiest thing to do. That's wrong. Line work is the easiest thing to fuck up. Okay. And then also the expo thing. Just because you're going to an expo doesn't mean that the artist is going to be good. I've seen probably the worst artists ever tattooing at expos, like charging $1,000 for.
Yeah.
I can't even describe to you how shitty it looked. Like a toddler could do better.
Yeah.
And these are people I know in person. Stuff like that. Also, drinking and stuff beforehand. Don't do that. Don't drink the night before. Don't drink the day getting the tattoo. There's so many.
I did learn that one.
There's so many aftercare things that it's just like, don't do that. Like, don't get into a swimming pool right after. I tattooed this dude's entire forearm, and he's like, well, I'm going cliff jumping tomorrow. And I was like, what?
A lot of people don't realize, and this is just coming from the fact that, like, I trained as an EMT for a little while, so I had to learn a lot about just wounds and all that. The fact that, like, a tattoo is an open wound.
Yes.
Anything you wouldn't do with an open wound, don't do with a tattoo. Like, cliff jumping, stupid. The amount of bacteria that's in that water,
it's so gross.
It's gonna go right into it. Like, that's how the infection.
I hope that he didn't go. I never, like, I don't know. I don't know if he ended up going or not.
Yeah.
But I cautioned a lot against it. I was like, don't do that.
The other thing I wanted to ask, biggest pet peeve. I've seen a lot of like Instagram videos of like artists making fun of, or like doing skits with like pet peeves. What are some of your pet peeves that either that both like other artists that you see in the industry or that happens in the industry, and then peeves from customers that come in?
I think that I have a big pet peeve on people judging each other, especially like different styles judging each other. Like a realism artist being like, well, they do traditional, like they're shitty. Like that's fucked up. Like it's just a different style, you know?
Yeah.
So I definitely don't like, even not in the tattoo industry, I just don't like people judging each other in general or judging each other's tattoos because they got it because they liked it. It's not your business what it looks like. But for clients, I have the most amazing client base. Like, it's so hard for me to think of things that I don't like because every person that I talk to every day is just like the most amazing person. Like, I don't know if you ever see my Instagram stories, but they're always sending me things. Like I got an edible arrangement last week. My other client, he owns the Skeleton Clogs brand, and he sent me 2 pairs of shoes for free. So I don't even know. Like I have a lot of pet peeves for clients that aren't mine, you know, like.
Okay. Those then. Since you
like,
apparently have the best clients.
I have the best clients in the world. Basically like that creepy, like awkward hitting on a tattoo artist getting tattooed is a huge pet peeve of mine. Like it's a professional job. Like the tattoo artist shouldn't be hitting on the client shouldn't be hitting on the tattoo artist, period. Like you're in a professional place, act professionally. And my clients don't do that. Like I have the best clients again. But
so how would, if there is attraction there, how would it be appropriate to go about?
Don't get tattooed by that person then, because that's changing the dynamic of the relationship.
Okay, so get tattooed by somebody else, and then maybe.
Yeah, sure. I mean, don't go in there with the intent of like trying to hit on someone at their work. Like that's not great. But I don't know. I don't know what the best way for that would be, but it's definitely don't do it from a client perspective. That's like trying to hit on a therapist and you're being their client. Like
yeah. That makes sense. Do you have any ick tattoos? Not like you personally, but like any tattoos that you think of that's like seriously?
No. I really think that like if they liked it, then that's all that matters. I don't have any tattoos that I'm like, I don't know. I just don't think of
like
other
classic
stuff.
Ones that would be like unattractive.
Because a lot of people would be like, oh, the lion and the clock. It's just like, bro, like you just heard that shit on TikTok. Like, do you actually think that looks bad? Or did you just hear someone else say that? Because I think that the lion and clock stuff like got popular for a reason. Like it looks nice.
Yeah.
But they liked it. You guys are all in the club together. It's cute. In the club, we're all fam or whatever they say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a first-time person getting a tattoo, what are the biggest do's and don'ts?
Oh my gosh. Do find an artist that you like their work and you trust them. Make sure you're communicating with your artist, and also making sure you're taking notes on the aftercare and asking them for things that like you should do before and after. Make sure you're eating a meal before. A lot of people will pass out if they don't eat, especially because they're anxious and they don't know what tattoos feel like. And then also getting a tattoo for you. It doesn't matter if it's means something or doesn't. Make sure that you're getting something because you like it and not because you're worried about what everybody else is going to think.
What about biggest do's and don'ts as a new artist trying to get into the industry?
If you don't have a tattoo apprenticeship and you're trying to learn how to tattoo, biggest do is get an apprenticeship. Make a portfolio that shows a lot of different styles and a lot of originality. You want to see like ballpoint pen, you want to see charcoal, you want to see paintings. We want to see, your range as an artist. If I can see you can do a lot of different mediums, that's a good indicator that you're going to be able to pick up a new medium well. And then again, making sure that you're not just taking things off Pinterest and putting them down in your portfolio. Like that's not, if you get,
I'm guilty of that.
If you get an apprenticeship that way, it's not going to be a good apprenticeship. And make sure you're like the ones that you're looking for are underneath people that you really admire and respect, because again, it's not the best industry and it's easy to fall into that predatory trap.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything about the industry in its entirety that you really hope changes within the next, say, 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, everything that I'm doing at my tattoo shop is what I'm trying to change in the industry, and being more open to people and being more caring and being more passionate about our art, being more original and really just connecting with our clients on a deeper way than just like, give me your money, like, and I'm going to do what the Pinterest tattoo you showed me. Like, it's so much more than that. You bond with your clients, and it's therapy too, and that's what we really talk about with the mental health and tattoos together. Like, people are covering up scars, like people are getting tattoos for memorial pieces and mixing ashes into them. Like, it's so much deeper than
mixing ashes into it?
Yeah, you can mix ashes into tattoos. So people get memorial pieces and will mix family member, dog, ashes. They're sterile, so it's completely safe to mix into the ink. But yeah, it's so much deeper than just what people think it is. It can mean so much more to a person than what people think it does.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, usually I'm like going hardcore into like childhood trauma and all that, but
it would be a little dark for this episode.
You'd be surprised. I've gotten some like dark stories, but those ones are the best. I love those because when I'm going into like childhood trauma type of stuff, I feel like the vulnerability is what people are able to connect with.
Yeah.
And especially like when they see someone that has gained success in something and came from a certain type of background, it gives like hope for them to be able to do that. So
yeah,
that's why a lot of times I'm like, tell me your story. And then it's like, okay, well, I did this. I'm like, I don't want to know how many brothers and sisters you have. I want to know what happened to when you were 10 that altered your life forever type of stuff.
Yeah.
All that. But it's also, I have to kind of balance that, especially with brand new people, because I know a lot of people like, that's not something like, I keep that on the DL type of thing. So I try to,
I feel like it's good to get a understanding of why people are watching it in the first place.
Yeah. Well, the whole point of this, it's kind of to mix that. And like, I know that you were mentioning that you have your own podcast that you kind of talk about mental health and stuff, which for me, that's kind of unintentionally one of the things that this turned into a little bit.
Yeah.
Because
that's just such a big problem in our society today. It's hard to kind of stray towards that.
Well, especially with like the younger generations coming in now, we have like our brains are being manipulated in so many different ways, and we have like epidemics of depression, ADHD, anxiety, and all this kind of stuff, and like all these things are like it's almost as seeming thrown around, but it's happening to everybody. And I know that like someone might see you on the outside and be like, oh, I can probably guarantee I know exactly what her life looked like. They wouldn't know that you were completely tattoo free and everything, didn't even pick up a gun until you were 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
Like it's the whole stereotype thing. Like I don't know what your life looked like
Yeah, 'cause
growing up.
a lot of TikTok comments when I'm going live, if I'm getting a tattoo, they're like, "Oh, you must have had some like great family trauma," and it's
Yeah, it's like, oh, daddy issues, huh?
Yeah.
Or like, oh, you must really hate authority or something. It's like, actually, I have the best.
yes to all of those things, but also you're completely right.
It's kind of funny too, because like a lot of times, like you cannot. I'm sorry, but you cannot depict like trauma based off of visual. Like a lot of people, I've seen them look at me and they're like, oh, like I thought you had a perfect life. I'm like, oh no.
I mean, how many people are you gonna look at on the street and really be like, that person had like a perfect family? Because I know maybe one person with like a family dynamic that I'm like, wow, that's nice.
I guess it goes more into of the cliche, like maybe what you see from the movies of like mom and dad still married, they still love each other, they grew up, like, or you go to Scottsdale pretty much and you see pretty much anyone in Scottsdale that's like, oh, I'm a trust fund baby.
It's all the behind closed doors that you don't get to see any of the stuff that's really
like the clean cut guy that's walking, probably finance bro or something, that the hardest thing he's had to deal with is not getting enough allowance one week or something.
I think that the really fucked up thing too in our society is comparing trauma and being like, well, that person didn't go through this, so like they don't have any reason to be depressed, and that's not how depression works.
Yeah, and that's I actually I had a buddy of mine. It was the weirdest thing. I've never been asked, what is depression feel like? And it was the weirdest thing because I'm like,
emptiness.
I was like, I don't really even know how to verbalize. Like, I've dealt with chronic depression most of my entire life.
I feel like depression feels like a lack of life.
Yeah.
You feel less of everything.
Well, it's like a lot of people goes, are you just sad? And it's like, it's so much more than just sadness. It's just
Feels like you're
emptiness.
just
It's
missing.
a void.
Yeah.
It's lack of motivation. Like when you're going into the actual brain chemistry of it, like there's actual brain chemistry to back up what's actually happening and stuff. And so that's why like a lot of times most of the people that I've talked to like on here, they have gone through something absolutely crazy, which is why they turn their life into something, because like there's different avenues they can go into. You can go drugs, alcohol, all that kind of stuff.
Victim.
Or you can turn it, like the most successful people that I've seen are typically the ones that have gone through the most shit.
Yeah.
That's a big pattern that I've seen. Like the CEOs that are actually powerful, or like the not just like the, oh, I inherited my company from.
Because it's really like when you go through something super traumatic and you get through it, then it's like, what else is scarier than that?
Yeah.
You know?
I'm kind of curious what kind of big obstacles that you've kind of faced that have shaped you into.
I mean, we can talk about it. It's all over my Instagram, so why not? I mean, my dad ended his life 2.5 years ago.
Oh wow.
And I was the person who found him. Yeah. So it was not in a pretty way either. He used the biggest handgun they make, is the Desert Eagle. And I was the only person that got to see that, which thank God for my family. My other family didn't see that, because I don't think that they'd be okay after that. And I do think that I was supposed to be the one to find him, because I was just talking to someone about this, and it's like so many people that have never gone through something like that would look at that experience and be like, I don't know like how you're okay after that. And it taught me so much that I'm just so grateful for. Like, I don't ever expect anyone, you know, if someone cuts me off in traffic, I'm like, I don't know what they're going through. If someone does me wrong, I don't know what they're going through. And it gave me this whole new perspective on people, that I'm just like so much more empathy for every person that I meet. And it's made me such a better person because of that. And it's also, again, what I was talking about before, where it's like, I went through that. What could be worse than that? Nothing could be worse than that. So I'm like, I got over the biggest hill already. Fucking, I'll open a business. Like, what am I gonna do? Lose money? Like,
yeah, it's kind of like you look at that and you're like, that nothing about this could be worse than what I already went through.
Everything is now minuscule to me.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing that stresses me out anymore, because I'm just like, well, I dealt with the hardest thing that I think I could personally deal with in my own life. I'm like, I'm good now.
There was another show. I don't know if you've heard of like Round Table, I think, where like all these actors sit around like a round table. It's on YouTube. But there was a thing that Tom Hanks was saying, and it sticks with me still to this day because it's just like, ugh, it just really kind of, but in the best way. And it's, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
And it really, like, through all the trauma that I went through all the bullshit that I went through, that's been the main thing that's kind of brought me through is like, you're going to get over this hump. There is like, it's not going to last forever. Most of the time it lasts however long you make it last. Obviously different timing for everybody else, or like everyone has their own timing and stuff, but you like it.
Or it's like that saying that it's like diamonds are made under pressure.
Yeah.
And it's like the people that have the most traumatic experiences, like it's really a sink or swim moment. You're either going to choose to blame yourself and be a victim, or you're going to choose to look at things the way that the world actually works and choose to be bigger and be better for everybody else. Because now when someone's really rude to me, I'm just like, I know that they're making their own personal hell, and there's nothing that I need to do to help them with that.
And it is hard sometimes in those instances to not take things personal. A lot of times, like, if someone's directly acting a certain way towards you, our first instinct is to take it personal. Like, what the fuck did I do? That person's doing something. But being able to, instead of reacting immediately to that and being able to be like, you know what? I don't know what kind of shit they're going through. Maybe their dog just died. Maybe they just got cheated on.
There's this analogy that I love, because now that I am my authentic self and I am the way that I am, whenever people misinterpret me, I don't take it personally because that's not who I am.
Yeah.
But there's this analogy, and it's like, pretend I'm wearing a red shirt and you walk up to me and you're like, I hate the color blue. I hate you. And you storm off, and I'm like, bro, I'm wearing a red shirt. Like, dude's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And so when someone comes up to you and they're like, well, you're being a narcissist, and you take it personally, some level, you feel like that's true. Because if you knew it wasn't true on some level, you wouldn't have that visceral reaction.
Yeah. Well, it's also, like, I personally, like, I'm an approval junkie. Based off of probably whatever childhood trauma I have, or just however I grew up, my biggest thing is approval. And if for whatever reason someone says, like, oh, I don't like your energy, I'm going to be on that. Like, even if it's not directly geared towards me.
An approval junkie is just another way of saying that you're insecure.
Which I will 100%. I'm secure with saying that I have those insecurities of.
Because you want to be like, you want people to validate.
I like to be liked. I don't want to, like, I've seen what happens to that person that's not liked. I've seen what happens when a person isn't given it that kind of approval, and it's a lonely feeling.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing. Like, I don't know. I know there's a lot of psychology even behind stuff like that, but even that is a big thing that I've seen, that, like, a lot of people, they're not willing to admit it. They're like, oh no, I don't need people's approval.
That, like, it's not about not needing people's approval, but I think that people are scared that if they are their most authentic self, then they will be alone, which isn't true. It's not true at all. And the more authentic that you become, the more aligned you are with people that are that way.
Yeah.
And you meet people on a deeper level.
That was kind of...
You'll lose a lot of people, but those are the people that weren't meant to be around you because you're not being your most authentic self around them.
That was a big thing I dealt with when I first moved out here. I had different crowds and stuff, and went through like a really lonely period of nobody around me, but at the same time I was going through different growth. But then out of nowhere, influx of different people were coming into the life as soon as, like, I started, instead of staying in that rut of like, oh, no one likes me, blah, 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 I was like, you know what? I miss MMA. I'm going to get back into MMA, going to the gym and like, hey, what's that? Like, I'm naturally a very extroverted person.
Yeah.
I'm naturally very much like, let's hang out, let's connect type of stuff. Like, I'm naturally like that. And so, like, I'll make friends. I'm not afraid to say hi to somebody.
But it's also like, it's better to go through 100 shitty people and meet that one person that's going to be like your soul person.
Yeah.
Than to just be like, I'm going to shut off because, you know, I went through 99 people and they all hated me, but you missed out on that last one person.
Right.
Could have been the person that's going to be your best friend for the rest of your life.
Well, there's also that other saying of like people are in your life for seasons, for reasons. Like
a reason, a season, or a lifetime.
Yeah, and I've had that before too. I'm like, I really wish I still had like this person in my life. I'm like, you know what? Maybe we just don't align. Maybe like we're like, I don't have anything against them, but I'm like, we're not on the same.
But the crazy thing too is when you start doing the like shadow work and personal work, and you start really like upgrading yourself into those higher vibrations, you'll meet people that are that way. And let's say that you miss that person, but you know, maybe you were on a lower vibration and they were growing.
Yeah.
And then you decided to like, hey, I don't need that relationship anymore. I'm going to work on myself. You work on yourself and you meet them where they're at, and it comes back around.
That was kind of a philosophy I ended up taking into romantic relationships a little bit. Like I was always just getting into like the toxic relationships, the girls with daddy issues, the girls that...
Relationships are always a mirror of yourself.
And I never really understood of like, why isn't this working out? Why can we not have this communication that I'm craving? Why can't this happen? But then I was like, you know what? I'm attracted to what I've been raised with, which was toxicity. And I probably portray a lot of that myself, honestly. And so I ended up kind of creating that philosophy of like, and so the weird philosophy that I came up with is like, I want a quote unquote queen level woman. Not to say anything physical attributes or anything like that, but
yeah,
like
no, it makes sense.
a queen level woman. But
you got to be a king then.
Exactly. You can't be, and it's vice versa. You can't be someone wanting a king level person, like wanting someone to treat you like you can't be a woman wanting a king that's going to do all this, but then also be a piece of shit. And the same thing with a guy. You can't be like, oh, I want a queen level woman, but then be a peasant yourself.
Yep.
It's like because you're just going to bring them down. Yeah,
you're never going to find better than yourself. And whether that, like, hey, maybe someone finds a dude with a ton of money, that doesn't make him better than you. No. And it's so much more than just superficial stuff. And when you do the inner work and you start aligning with people that are the same as you, then you build these connections that are just, they'll be with you for the rest of your life. Like all of the friends that I have now, like they'd take a bullet for me, and that's because I'd take a bullet for them too.
How long have you been in your current relationship?
I've been in it for about 2 weeks because we were dating and then we broke up and then we just got back together.
Gotcha. How long were you guys together before?
Like 4 months.
Okay. And is this like a different relationship than what you've had before, or have you usually had like good track records with relationships?
My last couple of relationships have been like the healthiest relationships I've ever been in. My one before this was like the most healthiest relationship I've ever been in, and I ended up breaking up with him, and he apologized to me and said like, I'm sorry that I wasn't like enough for you. And it's just crazy to go from this like toxicity, scarcity mindset and like things have to be this way. And it's just society paints this picture of what relationships are and what our families taught us and what our parents taught us, and it's all bullshit. Like you can have everything that you've ever wanted if you're just honest with yourself and honest with the people around you. And if you're not honest with yourself and honest with the people around you, you're gonna have these connections and you're gonna hold on to these connections that don't serve you.
That's actually kind of, it's funny that you mentioned that too, because especially lately, there's been a lot of people in and out of my life. And normally, with the old mentality that I would have with that, it was a lot of like, oh, what's wrong with me that people aren't staying? I've somehow been able to naturally shift to like, you know what? It's okay that they're leaving. I don't see a specific, and it might sound fucked up, but like a specific purpose for this person being in my life.
Yeah.
They don't contribute creatively, you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah, creatively to my life. Like my career is in creativity.
Yeah.
It's in film, podcasting, it's in acting, it's all that kind of stuff. And so usually like, and I kind of, in a weird way, like organize my friends. So I have my friends of like faith, the ones that like I align with spiritually, that can help me out with that kind of journey and stuff that I can kind of go to align with that. I have the career friends that are the ones that are also like in the creative industries, other videographers, filmmakers, other things like that. I have like these different things. Sometimes they don't all mesh together.
That's me. I'm the come to me for any of it.
Yeah.
Except for car stuff.
I try to kind of incorporate a little bit, but at the same time, like if you don't fit into any of those categories for me, I'm like, okay, well, what am I chasing from you then? And a lot of times I'm like, am I just chasing sex?
Yeah.
Like if it's like a random girl that's in and out or whatever, I'm like, am I talking to you because I actually want to connect with you?
And is it taking your time that you could be working on things that you actually care about?
Exactly. And it's like, whoa. You know what? You want to go? Cool.
Yeah.
You go do your own thing.
You're not benefiting me, and it's not even in like a superficial way with benefiting. It's like you're not adding to my life.
Right.
And I'm not adding to yours.
And when I say like sex, not just like, oh, I'm just trying to sleep with everyone. It's more of like that attraction.
So let me clarify.
Yeah. Because I know that people are like, oh, you're just trying to sleep with people. No, that it's more of just like
also about,
the sex drive.
Intimacy too, and like wanting you. It's humans don't want to feel alone.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like you'd rather have someone, even if they're not perfect, to be with, so that you don't feel alone. But at the end of the day, that's not going to be what anybody needs. It's really like sitting with yourself, being alone, being okay with being alone, and then learning from that.
Scariest shit in the world.
Yeah, and it's 99% of the people won't do that, and that's why so many people are in unhappy relationships. Is because they're too scared that they're gonna be alone, that they'd rather stay unhappy with a person.
The amount of relationships that I have stayed in because the thought of being alone was scarier than whatever toxicity was happening. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that's also just going to that, like, I learned very early on, I hate being alone.
Everybody hates being alone, regardless of if people are introverts or not. Like, nobody wants to die alone. Like, we're social creatures. Especially in America too, it's crazy that so many people are like, quote unquote, introverts. You don't find that in Europe though. Like, people don't even know what that means in Europe, you know?
I also don't really think like, yes, there could be some genuine introverts.
Like going out and partying,
but I don't think that I think it's more of they haven't, one, found their people. Yeah. And two, found the things that they like.
Well, I'll have clients that I'm talking to. I'm tattooing them for 8 hours, and they'll go, well, I'm an introvert. Like, I don't really like people. And I'm like, bro, we just talked for 8 hours straight. And you're telling me you don't like people.
They think they're an introvert because of the fact that they're like, I can't just go onto the street and meet a random person.
There's a lot of shitty people. There's a lot of people that you wouldn't want to talk to. But it's like the people you do want to talk to, you're not an introvert to those people.
Like, if you put me in a giant crowded room of people I don't know, I'm gonna be a little shy at first. I'm gonna be like, I'm on the people watching thing. I'm like trying to analyze my situation, trying to see.
I'm like an introvert hunter too, because I will find the quiet ones and I will
see every introvert needs that.
Yeah, no, it's funny because my roommate and her boyfriend now, like I was an introvert hunter because that man is shy, but he's not shy around his friends, and they're dating now, and I'm like, I can't wait for their wedding, and I'm gonna speak and be like, it's because of me.
and those kinds of people though are definitely the biggest blessings, because the amount of times that like I'll get invited to a party and I get there and I'm literally just sitting around. I'm like, I don't know anyone here.
And it's so rude to see someone sitting alone that you know and not introduce them to people and try to get them to like socialize.
Like especially if it's like my event or something, if I see someone there that I don't know, that they're kind of sitting, I'm like, I know exactly what's going through their head. I need to introduce myself, unless they're just rude. That's like, why the fuck are you here then? Yeah. But otherwise, I'm like, hey, you want a drink or something? Like, hey, tell me about yourself. I want to know who, because you never. A lot of times it's like those super quiet people too that are the most interesting.
That's crazy because the shyest people are the fucking weirdest ones.
I know.
I love it because like
they have the craziest stories.
You know, it's like when they have a cat and the cat's kind of shy and doesn't like anyone, and then like it comes up to you and lets you pet it.
Best
like,
feeling in the world.
I feel like that's how it is when you find an introvert and they start being weird around you. You're like, that cat that let me pet it. It's like the exact same.
You're the chosen one.
Yeah, literally. It's like you feel comfortable enough to be weird around me. It's like I won.
It is the most amazing feeling in the world, and especially like when they give you that information. Like, I usually don't really talk to people. I don't really connect. Like I've talked to you more than I've talked to like anyone else. Yeah. In the last like year, and it's like
crazy.
It's because I have a genuine
But I
interest.
feel like going back to like having that trauma and posting things on social media surrounding that,
Yeah.
and people really getting to know me for like who I am before they even walk into the door of my tattoo shop. I've had so many people that come up to me in the tattoo shop and they're like, I feel like I already know you. I watch your live streams. Like I've read all your stuff. Like I feel like I already know who you are. And it's like, it made me feel a lot more comfortable being able to come into your space.
Yeah. That's a thing that a lot of people that I like to destroy the stigma of vulnerability. A lot of people are afraid to be vulnerable because they fear judgment.
Yeah.
They fear what other people are going to think. And it's like, you do realize whatever's happened to you is not the first time it's happened in existence.
It's crazy too, because like once I shared my stuff on social media, like the amount of people that I have talked to, like not just clients, but people that come up to me and tell me about similar stories and share these things with me, they feel comfortable sharing these things with me. Like I feel like it's a blessing. Like,
yeah, vulnerability brings people together. It makes people feel like they're not alone. Like,
we're all connected.
I'll listen to some podcasts. Like there's one podcast of this actor that like normally you just like, okay, cool, it's just an actor. But he'll go into his past with addiction, with sexual assault and all that kind of stuff. Something that most men don't bring up and talk about. And for me, I'm like, I feel heard. Even if I'm not actually saying this, I'm like, there's another man on here that has a successful life.
And he's still a male too. Like he's still like, an alpha male, even though
no one is looking at him and be like, oh, look at this gay ass guy or something.
Yeah,
like he's so like all this kind of stuff. And I'm like,
it's our society's the issue, and I think that the solution is being the difference, and like especially with our generation, really talking about mental health and raising the next generation to be even more aware of it growing up is what's going to change things.
Yeah, and that was a big thing that I've kind of gotten to realize too, is just the chain of trauma in generations. Like,
gotta break it.
You see the people complaining about each generation, like our parents' generations, the generation right before them are being like all these like 20-year-olds and stuff, blah, 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 ruining everything. It's like, I'm sorry that your parents, like, yes, you were raised in the Great Depression.
Yeah.
So things were pretty shitty then, and you had to be resilient and all this, but it's like trying to compare, like, this generation is just doomed. It's like, you realize it came from you guys, though, right? If you're going to blame us, then...
That's why people are always projecting the blame onto others instead of being the change they want to see. And that's where, not just in my, like, business side of things, like, if I need something from someone, I want to be that way, but in society, too, like, I want to be the person that, like, is not going to judge people for who they are, and, like, I just want to help change society by being the things that I want to see more of.
I like that.
I feel like that's how we're going to do it. Like, that's how this generation's going to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
More empathy, more love, more vulnerability.
I feel like this generation's definitely one of the ones that's gonna change.
Oh, we got like a massive spiritual awakening happening during this generation. It's insane.
Yeah. So I have a couple of closing questions. First one is, how do you personally practice self-discipline?
I practice self-discipline by, I make a schedule for myself. Like, I literally just scheduled kind of when I'm going to go to my classes and when I'm going to work. And I have kind of a routine that I got into, and I feel like it's really easy to keep up with things if you make a routine for yourself. And I feel like the people who aren't disciplined, like if you're starting from scratch, don't go into it balls to the wall. Don't make a whole schedule and be like, I'm going to have to hit every single one of these things. Like, if you don't have any discipline, the problem is you don't trust yourself. If you tell yourself you're going to wake up and go to the gym tomorrow and you don't, if you can't trust yourself, who can you trust? So the best thing to start practicing discipline is by making promises to yourself that you can keep. And don't make promises to yourself that you're not going to keep. If you tell yourself you're going to go to the gym that day, make sure you do it. Or even if you want to start going to the gym, make sure you tell yourself to go to the gym and I'm just going to go for 10 minutes and walk on the treadmill. Even if, like, I don't got to go crazy. Just as long as you're keeping the promises to yourself, you build trust within yourself. And that's really mostly what I've worked on doing is making sure that I can trust myself. When I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And that's when, you know, if someone invites me to something and I say I'm going to be there, like they text me the day before, hey, are you still going to be there? I told you I was going to be there. Yeah. I'm the person that, like, if I tell you I'm going to be somewhere, I'm going to be somewhere, regardless.
That's been my biggest pet peeve lately. The amount of people that last minute, like, no. I'm like, please don't make a plan with me unless, like, I know I get shit happens sometimes. Personal emergencies happen, all that. But the amount of, like, flakiness that I've come across, especially
I mean,
last
like, you
year.
don't have any deposits with this either, so there's nothing like, there's no reason why they need to come here. So I feel
Well,
like
I
it's gonna
mean,
be hard.
not even like with just this,
like plans
but
and
just like
stuff.
in general, whether it's a video client or whether it's like I'm doing something for them and they cancel. Or,
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
It's a lack of respect of other
Yeah.
people's time. It's basically them saying that your time isn't as valuable as my time.
Even with this, though, I mean, this isn't for me specifically. It's
Yeah.
also like
You're doing it for a reason.
I do this not only to reach out the audience, hopefully help whoever is sitting in that chair tell their story and help get them content, help them out with whatever. Like, it's not just like, oh, you're on here to help me. This, like, yes, like, there's no deposit on this, but it's also just like the mutual time respect.
Well, I feel like that's like the biggest thing in the tattoo industry is
Yeah.
if you don't have a deposit down, I'm not guaranteeing anyone's going to show up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's just 99% of the time. Like, that's how it is. That's how people are.
Yeah.
They're like, if I'm not losing something from not going, I'm not going to go.
Which kind of sucks that you have to
Do that.
be at that point of like you're losing something if you're not doing it, which I know like that's a lot of people like, oh, $5 deposit that's fully refundable. I only have that
Yeah, well, all of
because
our deposits at my shop are non-refundable. If you're making an appointment, you're
Yeah.
going to be at that appointment.
like it's like not just specifically that, but like I've seen the most ridiculous things as like, oh, it has a deposit. It's like, why? It's like you're only invested in it if you have something to lose.
But it's also like, if you're going to make an appointment for something and you feel like you probably won't go, then that's when you feel bad about putting the deposit down. But if
Yeah.
the deposit goes towards the total, people have no issue putting deposit down.
Yeah.
Like, that's just how it works.
Right. Is there anything specific that we didn't touch on that you want to make sure kind of gets said either about you, your brand, or just in general about your industry?
I don't think so. I mean, you have any questions I didn't answer?
I don't think so. I mean, I know that there's a lot of questions, but it's
There's so much too, because I'm like a huge fan of conspiracy theories.
we needed to
That would have to be like a completely different
Oh yeah,
one.
no, I've started getting super into conspiracy theories, especially when it comes to politics. So that is a big one. We'll have to do like a whole separate like part.
Because I have an ancient philosophy book, and then I learn about like a lot of different religions too. So I'm really big into spirituality, and I love talking about different religions and how they integrate into spirituality. So like there's
So part 2 is going to be
there's so much.
specifically just like
philosophical ideas and conspiracy theories. 'Cause
Well,
conspiracy theories like tie into spirituality too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And especially just with the world today, there's so much shit that I feel like is just like it's not what you see.
There's so many like alien things going around now.
Awesome. Well, how can people find you if they don't know?
My Instagram is tats by Alia, and TATSBYALIA. My TikTok is ALIACS. And I think
What's your tattoo shop?
my tattoo shop is Inferno Ink. We are located at 1837 East McDowell Road in Phoenix, Arizona. And the website is infernoinkaz.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Alia, for coming on and kind of giving us a little bit of insight into this industry that I feel like not a lot of people know a whole lot about.
Yeah.
That has a lot of controversy in its own thing, which we could have definitely gone into a lot of more of like the controversy stuff, but I feel like this was more of I wanted to get into the business side of stuff, the actual just tattoo shop type of stuff itself, as that's what this kind of focuses on. But next episode, we'll get into all the other nitty-gritty stuff. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course.